Hey everybody, welcome to Loops and Leather. I appreciate everyone joining me and following along on my fiber journey. You've got the rare face shot. I'm not super photogenic, so you don't see me all that often. But anyway, hello everyone. It is the day after Thanksgiving, and I had started recording this video last night after I had my Thanksgiving feast, but realized that I probably needed to do a little preamble to the video. What I'm starting is double weave pickup pattern on my 4-shaft table loom. This is a Tools of the Trade loom, and I love this loom. I got it earlier this year, and best decision I ever made was driving down to Chattanooga and getting this loom. It has 4 shafts, and each shaft raises with a lever, and I don't really want to raise them up right now because I'm in the middle of threading heddles. So, but we will get to that. I will show you how the table loom works. But this is a great loom. It's light. It is, it's well made, and it's really easy to use. There's no pedals to tie up, but it gives you a lot more ability to do more complex patterns than you might have on a rigid heddle loom, or at least without a lot of modification of a rigid heddle loom. So anyway, loving my 4-shaft Tools of the Trade loom. So what we're going to be working on is double weave pickup. And what that is, double weave, let's back up a little bit. Double weave is actually 2 layers of fabric that you're weaving the same time. So in each layer is plain weave. So you're going to have the top layer is going to have shaft 1 and 2 going up and down just like normal for a plain weave, and that is in one color. And then your second layer, or the double weave layer, is on the bottom, and you're actually weaving it at the same time, and but that's going to be a different color. In my case, I'm using a turquoise and a goldy yellow. It looks more gold on the spool than it does on the loom, but that's okay. I wanted 2 high contrast colors because this is my first time doing this, and I wanted it to be really easy and apparent for me to see what I was doing as I go through the process of learning. So with the pickup, the double weave pickup, what you're doing is you're making a top layer, you're making a bottom layer, and at the point where you want your pattern to be on the surface, you're actually going to push down or pick up the lower layer so that it is what is visible on the top. And you're pushing down the top layer so it's not visible except on the reverse. So ideally, when this is done, we're going to have turquoise on one side with a gold pattern showing, and if we turned it over, we're going to have a gold surface with a turquoise pattern showing. So it's really neat idea. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I could not wrap my head around it. I've spent quite a bit of time watching videos. It's got a bunch of different names, but I've been just watching all the resources that I could find, couple of my reference books, just really trying to understand how it works. I think I've got it, but we can only know for sure when I put it to test. So the image that I'm going to do is this flower. I have another chart actually that I wanted to do, but it was very detailed, and I thought that that was probably not the best choice for my first attempt at this. I'm going to pick something that has a little less detail, larger areas of color that I'm going to pick up so there's less up and down lifting and pushing down of warp threads. So when you're doing the setup on these patterns, so this was the one thing that I really couldn't find, was how to calculate, how to set it up. And I think I finally got it. Each square on the chart represents 4 threads. So you have the up-down warp for one color and the up-down warp for the other color. So that's your 4, because it's just plain weave. that you're doing with the shafts. So because each square will represent 4 threads, this particular pattern has 50 columns, or 50 columns down. And in order to be able to do this whole chart, I need at least 50 squares, which would be 4 threads per square, or 200 ends. So I warped 200 ends. There are 100 turquoise and 100 gold. I also added on 16 additional threads at the end. There's 8 additional turquoise, 8 additional gold, and that's going to give me just a little bit of a extra buffer along the either side of the pattern, for the width. So if you had a pattern that had 20 columns and you need 4 threads per column, that would be you would need 80 ends, or 80 individual yarns. Or if you're doubling yarn, you would have to do that math. The weight of your yarn is also going to determine the width of your final project. This is knitter's yarn, so this might actually end up being a little bit too narrow once I'm done. We'll see. I'm hoping that it comes out to be a reasonable piece that I could use. It could be a scarf, but it's okay if it's not. I really am more focused on practicing the technique, and then if I have to adjust the weight of my yarn or my set, to get the width of pattern that I want, that's okay. I can do that on my next project. I don't want to go and burn through hundreds of yards of a fine wool or silk or a hand-dyed tencel or anything like that when I've got cones and cones of this knitting yarn that is relatively inexpensive to practice with. So, okay, that's my preamble. Thanks for sticking with me through it. I am going to go ahead and move on to winding on the warp. I've got a couple of pictures of the warp on the warping board I'll show you, and then we're going to do, I'm going to pick up with winding on the warp from last night. Little reverse order, that's okay. And then we'll do threading the heddles, slaying the reed, and hopefully we can start weaving. All right, see you in a minute. I'm using my tools of the trade for Shaft Table Loom. So there's 4 shafts, and being a table loom, it has levers, and I will switch around to the front here once I get this situated a little bit and show you. But it has levers instead of pedals on the floor, which makes it actually pretty versatile. I mean, I really enjoy working on a table loom. So anyway, I'm working on winding the warp onto the back beam of the loom, and you can see I've got it kind of all bunched up here so that it's not all knots. This is probably my least favorite part of weaving. I don't think I'm alone. But so I've got lee sticks between the cross of the ends, the yarns, and I've got my homemade rattle tied on, which is nothing more than 2 feet of yardstick and some thumbtacks pushed in there. I hope to upgrade to something a little fancier, sturdier, but you know what? It works. It does the job. And I also am using a roll, let me get this, a roll of like craft paper, and I use this between the layers. It's pretty thin, but it does okay. It rips pretty easily, so unfortunately I don't get to reuse this because it's just so flimsy and it's pretty old. But I'm putting a layer of that between each layer as I wind this on in order to help with the tension. So I'm putting some tension on the back side, which is actually the front, but when I'm winding on, it's the back. And then I am turning to wind this on, And you can see how the paper is, well, hopefully you'll be able to see that in just a minute. The paper is getting used up. My leaf stick is also moving with me, which isn't ideal, but it's okay. I can work with that. But my little rattle is helping to keep all of these threads aligned. And then I just back up my leaf sticks again. And these help keep tension as well. And so now I need to put another piece of, I need to release a knot from the front here. And let some more of my warp free. And I might give this a little bit of a whack to just loosen some of those ends up, straighten them out, keep that tension nice. And then add another piece of craft paper along the bottom. And I'm going to continue this process until I've got it all wound on to that beam here. All right, so I will come back once I've got this wound on, and I will swing around to the front to show you how I thread the heddles and then slay the reed. All right, we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so like I said, this is Thanksgiving evening, so please pardon my slumming it clothes here. I'm in my comfy pants and my sweats. So anyway, knowing that I have 50 columns and there are 4 threads per column, which makes 1 thread per shaft for each square. So I've got 25 heddles on this side, and I've got loads of extra over here that I can pull from. So let me slide these. I had gotten these out of the way when I was putting the warp on. Let me get some heddles over here. Got a few extra over here, but that's actually more to help balance the weight. I found that, not realizing I've got so many heddles on one side, it actually was making my shafts kind of tilt to the left a little bit. But, alright, so we've got a get these untangled here. 1, 2, shaft 3, and shaft 4. Okay. And so, like I mentioned a minute ago, I'm going to do these. The front 2 are going to be turquoise. The rear are going to be gold. So I'm going to grab my first turquoise thread here. Is that the right one? Hang on a minute. Make sure I've got these coming off in order. Yeah. All right. So first turquoise. And I've got these a little bit weird. I was winding this warp on 2 threads together. So there's going to be a little bit of overlap in the very, very back. I'm not stressing about just 2 threads. And then I've got number 3. and number 4. And of course, when we're threading, you know, I'm right-handed. This is my dominant hand, so I'm going to be working from the right over to the left, just because that's, you know, how my dominant hand is. But this is actually, these 4 threads represent 1 block, and we are going to put all 4 of these threads through the same slot on the reed. I'm using a 10 dent reed. So that's the first block, and we have 200 to go. Well, actually 50 to go, but 200 heddles. So I'm going to go ahead and work my way across, and I will meet you back here when we're ready to slay it through the reed. Alright everybody, so I have spent pretty much the entire afternoon and part of the evening threading my heddles. So as I was going along, it's funny, not funny, I realized that I have twice as many ends as I needed, as I intended. And the math per square was correct. However, my warping bundle calculation was off. So instead of having a total of 50 plus a couple on each side, I have 100 over 100. So there's twice as many ends as I need. Anyway, I went ahead and threaded them. So I had a couple of choices. I could have undid everything I had done already and doubled up my warp threads. Certainly an option. But because this technique requires pickup, I really didn't want to be dealing with doubled threads in each heddle. I was afraid that that would even be more confusing on my first attempt. So another option would have been to pull half of the warp over the back and just kind of let it unroll as I was weaving. But if I did that, I was afraid that, you know, if you look kind of halfway and then you have draw in as you weave, that it was going to end up too narrow. So I think I've come up with a solution. I'm going to go ahead and use the whole width. I figure with draw in, I'm going to lose probably a good third of my width anyway. If not a little more, because this is not super thick yarn. So with draw in, if I lose a third to even a half, it would still make a decent width for a scarf. And what I'm going to do with the pickup pattern, instead of just having it centered like you make normally for a pattern, I was thinking, like, how could I make it look like I didn't make this huge faux pas? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset the pattern because, oof, sorry, let me grab it. Because this pattern is, you know, this nice flower, if I put it in the corner and offset it to the right, it will look intentional. So I'm going to try that, and I might even, depending on how it's going and how, you know, tall it ends up, how long, I might even then turn it and kind of like alternate, you know, up and down for the length of the piece. But we'll have to see how it goes. But so that's the plan. Alright guys, so I have finally gotten the rest of this warp through the reed. I paused it there. I didn't think you wanted to see me slay this all the way across, but I did end up making an adjustment, and I started doing just every slot in the reed, and as I was working out toward the ends, it was really starting to cut in and that can mess with your tension. You'll have more tension on the outside than you will in the center. So I went ahead and undid the little bit in the center where I had started, and I did 221, 221, 221. I hope that works out well for my ends per inch on the weft, so that the pattern shows up like it looks balanced, because ultimately it is plain weave. We want it to be somewhat balanced. But we are going to have 4 picks of weft thread. It lines up with the 4 warp threads, so you're going to have 1 turquoise, 1 turquoise, 1 gold, 1 gold. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. Hope this works. So the next thing I'm going to do is I need to get it on the front beam. So I finally got all of my warp tied on to the front beam bar here. Started pulling it around. My tension looks pretty good, and I am getting some weft yarn on my bobbins, and I do a single just overhand knot to get it started. I have tape on on my winder. This is a really old winder, and it doesn't exactly fit the center of the bobbins that I have, so I just put some painter's tape on there to get it secure. I'm going to try and wind this as evenly as possible. This is not a center pull ball that I'm working off of, so it's a little bit of a hassle, but the more even that you get your yarn on your bobbin, the more you can actually fit on there. So you have to wind it less often. But it's never perfect. I've seen some people do this at high speed and get these beautiful bobbins. That is not me. But maybe someday I'll master the art. I'm just going to let this ball of yarn hit the floor. Done messing with it. It'll go around all over the place. Good. Okay. So I've got my two boat shuttles. I will say that this Leclerc shuttle is my favorite. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if it's the weight or the shape, but this is definitely my favorite boat shuttle.